We're here in our home away from home at Radio Row. I'm gonna miss this place, Rube.
No, you're not.
I'm not. No, I'm not.
Yeah.
It's a windowless,
Caverns.
dungeon-like room, but they did a nice job.
Tony Dungeon was in here earlier. It's like a big cavern
Yeah, it is.
filled with radio people.
This is the Eagle Eye Podcast, brought to you by Nissan. He's Reuben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro.
And Jimmy World's playing right outside right now. We're missing it.
Yeah. I fear I've given you the go-ahead to make puns after the last podcast, and I want to put a stop to that
All
right
no more
now.
puns.
Yeah. We have a lot to get to, as always. It's been a crazy busy week. It's Thursday. We just came back from the Eagles' final media availability of the week. From here on out, and it was funny. They were looking exhausted. We were looking exhausted, and everyone's like, we've seen enough of each other after 22 weeks of this.
Yeah.
But it was interesting. We actually learned something that I think is a little fascinating.
Yeah.
It was a great question by Zach Berman of The Athletic. The final question to Nick Sirianni before the Super Bowl. And he asked him, and it's a subject I've always been really fascinated about, especially with Nick, is his messaging and how much thought he puts into what he presents to his players. And Zach asked him, how much thought have you put into this situation Saturday night before the Super Bowl? And he said he put a lot of thought into it and then crumpled it up and threw it in the trash can.
Yeah, really interesting. He really opened up about what his original plan was, and not the content of it, but just how he planned to just do his usual routine and have a topic. And, it's usually some kind of motivational type thing. And he said he's going a completely different direction, and he shared it with us.
Yeah, he's basically going to open the floor and just let whoever wants to say something, say something. And I like that because it's kind of what his whole team is built on.
Right.
It's this idea that we're a team. You can be honest with everyone. This is a family. And it kind of feels like, it's like a family meeting. Just anyone who's got something to say, go ahead and say it. And it was funny because I don't think he had shared that with his players yet, at least some of the ones I had spoken with right after he said that. They kind of looked at me like, oh, you could already see the wheels start turning. Like, if I say something, what do I want to say? But a few of the guys also said it just has to be what you're feeling in that moment. You can't write a speech.
Right.
And look, I understand some of this sounds hokey, but it matters. And
Sure.
like they've gone through this crazy long journey together, and they have one more game left. And if it's someone like, if Darius Slay gets up there after being in the league 10 years, finally getting a Super Bowl, like that would mean a lot. If it's Brandon Graham coming back from an Achilles injury, finally back in the Super Bowl, whether it's Fletcher Cox, more than likely his last game with the Eagles 10 years down the line. Like there are so many different guys whose words will have meaning if they choose to speak.
Yeah. I've been to one Quaker wedding in my life. It was in Red Bank, New Jersey. And it was a really powerful thing. And what they do, I think most Quaker weddings are the same format. You're sitting in this. We're in an old Quaker meeting house. It was very warm. We were upstairs in a balcony, and it was the middle of the summer. There's no air conditioning in a Quaker meeting house. And people just sat there in quiet. And then when somebody felt compelled to speak, they stood up and spoke about the couple who got married. And it was a really beautiful thing, very different kind of wedding, very hot, but really powerful because people were speaking from the heart. Like you said, nobody prepared anything, nobody scripted anything. And when they felt moved to speak, they just got up and spoke. And it was really cool. It started out with some family members. I think there's kind of, you defer to the family members first. Like I think they would like Reed Blanket's just not going to get up and be the first guy to speak. I wouldn't think.
I would love for it to be someone like that.
Tyreek Cleveland.
Like Josiah Scott's like, move out of my way, boys.
Tyreek Cleveland just got here a month ago on the practice squad. No, but I would guess it would be one of Lane, Kelsey, BG. I would guess those guys would be first. And I'm sure it'd be a really powerful few moments and different. And I like the fact that Nick is he spent a lot of time thinking about how he wanted to handle this, and it's pretty cool. Hopefully that the Eagles' awesome social media people tweet some of this out.
I doubt they will. And honestly, I don't think they should.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, this should be for them.
Yeah, that's probably true. But I'm just so curious, what it'll be like. But
I'm sure we'll hear about it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
If they win.
If they win. If
Yeah.
they lose, we won't hear about it. But yeah, it's pretty cool. I was surprised he was sharing that with us, and I was really struck by what a cool idea it was.
Yeah, I think so. And it kind of reminds me of, like, you ever write a story and you're just not happy with it, but you're like, I'm supposed to write this story, and this is what it is, and you're running with it anyway because you put the work in for it, even though you know it's not your best. I kind of feel like that's Nick in this, because he put time into this, he put thought into this, he realized that there's something better, and he's going to that, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I think the Knights of the Round Table is like it was a round table because they were all equals, and this kind of reminds me of that. It's like anybody can share their opinion.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah,
there is a football game.
Yeah,
on Sunday. You almost forget about it being here. It's like, craziness of,
and it's true because we don't see the practice fields.
Yeah,
we don't see them in their in pads. We don't see them practice. So yeah, we just see them at tables and interviews. So you kind of like removed from the football aspect.
The Eagles did practice again on Thursday. A bunch of guys got some rest. Britton Covey popped up there with a hamstring injury. He was limited. He seemed like he was in good spirits at the media availability. I wouldn't read too much into that. Devontae Smith missed the media availability, came down with a migraine. Better now than Sunday. It's Thursday, so hopefully he'll be completely fine by the time the game starts. But Rube, I've been waiting for this for a while.
Matchup time.
Get back to football, and there are matchups. So on this podcast, we're going to look at the Eagles' defense against that number 1 ranked Kansas City offense and what they need to do to slow them down. And then on the next pod tomorrow, we'll get into the Eagles' offense against the Chiefs' D. But Rube, let's start here, because I think the most obvious one is number 15. He's pretty good, Patrick Mahomes. And I have my matchup here is Patrick Mahomes against Jonathan Gannon, because it's not like one player can stop Mahomes. It really has to be a collective effort, but it has to really start with the defensive coordinator and whatever he brings to this table schematically.
Yeah, and Mahomes is unlike anybody else, and Gannon's game plan is going to be different than any other game plan we've seen from him this year. And it's going to be focused on Mahomes and Kelsey. They have other weapons, they have other good players, but I mean, Juju is a good receiver, but I mean, it's going to come down to trying to pressure Mahomes and trying to limit Kelsey's damage when he catches it, get him down. I asked Gannon the other day, it might have been yesterday, what's the basis of your approach for Sunday? He said, don't let it go over our heads and take it away. That's it. That's it. That's it in a nutshell. And
that was the plan when they faced him in 21 too.
Yeah.
They didn't have the talent they have now.
Yeah. Yeah. And they certainly didn't have the pass rush. And I mean, I think to me, that's like probably the critical matchup in this game is.
I agree with that.
Is
you have to try to make him uncomfortable. He's not a guy who gets very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And this is, the game plan from Gannon is going to be the type of game plan that Eagles fans don't necessarily love. Because
they never like his game.
Because you can't blitz Mahomes.
Right.
He'll kill you. You really don't want to play a ton of man against him. He'll kill you. The best idea here is to play zone so you can keep your eyes on him, and then try to force him to have these long drives down the field. And it's tricky because he did that against them last year. There were drives of 77 yards, 83 yards, 75 yards, 75 yards, 75 yards, 65 yards. He was an efficient robot in that game. And Tyreek Hill was there, but they've been better offense without Tyreek Hill. So I think you're right. It's like, get pressure on him, try to force him into a bad throw. And man, when you have a chance to take the ball away from him, you cannot fail. You
Yeah.
just cannot afford to fail.
He might give you one chance. Maybe he'll give you two. He's not going to give you three. I mean, he's just, and he's not one of those guys that never throws interceptions. We have 12 or 13 this year. But he's not going to make many mistakes.
No.
And it's absolutely imperative. You can beat an average quarterback if you drop interceptions. We've seen them do that. Not with him.
Yeah. And we don't really have a full understanding of where his ankle is. They call it a high ankle sprain. It can't be that severe of a high ankle sprain. We know he's hurting out there. If it was a severe high ankle sprain, he's not playing. You can't do it. So with an extra week of rest, I'm sure it'll be better.
Andy said,
but you want to find out pretty soon in that game.
Yeah, Andy said yesterday that the game, the play, everything in the playbook is fair game. So we're not going to, he's not. He's doing better, and he's doing pretty well, and they're not going to have to change anything in the game plan or the playbook. So I don't know if that's gamesmanship or, Andy doesn't usually play that game, so I think he's going to be pretty healthy.
We'll see. Yeah,
and if he's not, then you can really pressure him.
I think so, because I think his ability to get away from pass rush is a little underrated.
Yeah. No, he's very clever. He's very elusive. He's very slippery. He's not fast.
Because he's not running around like Hurts, but he can avoid pressure like just about anyone. And then he has the wherewithal to like throw it underhand, doing a somersault, backflips.
Legs. Yeah. And I really like the concept of the Eagles pass rush most of this year. It's been a group rush. I talked to Jeremiah Washburn about that today. And that's the answer when a quarterback, has escapability. Well, if there's a guy on both sides of him, it's really hard. But he can do it. I mean, he'll pop out the back and start running around. He's just really slippery. So, but he also hasn't faced a defense that had 75 sacks or whatever, 73 including the playoffs.
Yeah. Travis Kelce. Let's talk about him. You mentioned him already. He's their big weapon on offense, and he's changed. He's not the same player he once was. And he's changed because he's not the big play threat he once was earlier in his career. But now it's like he's the accumulation guy. Like they will move down the field with him catching 10 to 15-yard passes. If you're the Eagles, I think you almost live with that.
Yeah. He also had 12 touchdowns.
Yeah. Once you get in the red zone, you that's when you start to.
Yeah. And average 12 yards a catch. So he's still big play guy. And it's going to take everybody. It's like there's no one guy. You don't say, Kaiser, you're covering Kelce. It doesn't work that way. You're going to try, I think, at different times. I mean, he lines up in a lot of places. They use him in so many different ways. And, I mean, Andy, it's like, Andy Reid with a toy like that, I mean, he's in full mad scientist
Travis Kelce
mode.
was asked this week, like, why are you always so wide open? He's like, Andy Reid could get my grandfather open. Like, and he, like, you watch the Chiefs, and that's what you can, like, why is no one covering Travis Kelce? It's because they found a way to manipulate the zone coverage, and he finds a zone. It's amazing.
It is. And he's got one of the best quarterbacks in history getting to him. So it's going to take everybody. It's going to take all 11 guys to get bodies around him and numbers to the ball. And I mean, he's going to catch passes. He's going to make big plays. You just try to limit him.
The next matchup I have on my list, and this is the one to me that could decide the game, because the Chiefs' offensive line is very good. It is a very good line, not as good as the Eagles' line. It's a very good line. If there's one weakness on this line, it's the right tackle, Andrew Wiley. And that is where Hassan Reddick lines up.
Yeah, that's a key matchup. And I like Sweat's chances on the other side too. But that seems like the matchup, and their interior is really solid.
I think you're right. Orlando Brown's pretty good, but Sweat can beat anyone.
Yeah.
And he's done really well.
And Orlando Brown,
high-level tackles.
He's not what he used to be either.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I think he made another Pro Bowl, but didn't have his best year. But yeah, that matchup on the other side, where Reddick lines up against Wiley is huge. And Andy was talking about that matchup, I think maybe yesterday, and he said he's not the, he's not, he doesn't have the best technique. He's not the biggest guy. He's not the strongest guy. I'm like writing this down. Oh, but he's a guy that really battles. Big, high effort guy, tough guy. So I like Reddick in that matchup.
Yeah, I like Reddick versus a guy who gives effort.
Exactly.
If that's what you're saying about the guy,
right?
It's because the talent's not there, and that's not a knock on him. But Hassan Reddick very well should have been the defensive player of the year. So I like his chances in that matchup, and it's easy to say, well, they should help on that side. Feel free. Hassan Reddick will happily take a double team, and then you got everyone else to worry about. So, and Reddick, by the way, I got a chance to talk to him today about his journey. If the NFL really is scripted, whoever wrote his script deserves a raise because it's incredible.
Yeah, it really is. 19 and a half sacks is the second most ever, including the postseason, by an Eagle. Reggie had 21 in 87 in 12 games, strike shortened season. If he has 2 sacks, which could happen, he'll have the most sacks in a season by an Eagle ever, more than Reggie White. Anytime you break a record by Reggie White, well, the last time we heard that was Derek Barnett, Tennessee, but we won't talk about that. But yeah, I think that could be the key matchup in this game.
I really think it could be. Yeah, I was talking to.
He's playing so well. I mean, he's just relentless right now, and I mean they're rushing well as a group, but he's on another level. He's on a level we just haven't seen since Reggie White around here.
Yeah, it's been really fun, and the fact that he gets to play the Super Bowl in the city that drafted him, the city that misused him and then gave up on him, basically, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I have a feeling he's going to be a big storyline come Sunday night.
I think so.
Yeah.
The next one on here is the Chiefs receivers against Eagles corners. And you might think, well, the Eagles corners, their talent's being wasted on these receivers because they're okay. Juju Smith-Schuster, MVS, like they're all pretty good. Kadarius Toney's become like a little gadgety guy in this offense. But
MVS he's a big play guy.
He is, and he operates out of the slot quite a bit. So that's something with Avonte Maddox and that toe injury that we know he's not going to be 100%. So if he's really hobbled at all, that could be an issue. But the Eagles have to feel pretty good about their corners against those receivers.
Yeah, and they feel good about their corners against anyone. This is not an elite receiver group, but they have a quarterback who can get them the ball better than anybody. So he brings out the best in them. Juju's played well this year. He's helped, but I think you kind of go into it knowing they're going to throw, and he still doesn't run. So I think that helps too. And I think again, why the corner's so good, why is the D-line, the pass rush so good? They complement each other, and it's a great combination.
It is. And then the last matchup I have on my list here is Chiefs running backs against the Eagles defense. And Isaiah Pacheco, Vineland kid, has been playing really well between the tackles runner, and then McKinnon is the guy out of the backfield as a threat to catch the ball. 9 touchdown catches this year. He's been playing really well. And we'll see. I don't think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to play much if he plays at all.
I would agree with that. The Eagles' run defense numbers aren't great, but I feel pretty good about it. Teams get some yards late in games or on gadget plays. I feel like their run defense is better than the numbers. The numbers
improved too.
Are what they are. It has improved. It's funny because like a lot of backups have had like one big run against them late in the game, but I don't feel like Pacheco's a guy, and I love his story. I mean, he's a guy. He's had more yards this year than he ever had at Rutgers in a season. So he's one of those 7th round pick, long shot guy that you have to root for. And South Jersey guy, Cumberland County. But I just don't see him really being a factor. They've been pretty good against teams' number 1 backs.
They have, but I still think even though the Chiefs are going to throw the ball, you still want to make them one-dimensional. If you can take away the run, you feel pretty good about that secondary, and you force them to throw, and you get them into 3rd and longs that way. then you have a chance to pin your ears back, get after Patrick Mahomes, and try to get some turnovers.
No doubt. Yeah. If they can stop the run, it's going to really certainly help big time in a lot of other areas. At Nissan, we just made your choice for a new car an easier one than ever with our most exciting and fuel-efficient lineup. The choice is yours. Now get great offers across our full line. Shop your local Nissan store today at nissanusa.com.
Catch all the sports action and more at Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Whether it's the money line or the pass line, there's something for everyone in the great sports book. Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Philly loves a winner. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Opioid addiction is a national public health crisis. The Someone You Know podcast from the Independence Blue Cross Foundation offers inspiring stories that challenge stigma, offer hope, and humanize disease of addiction. Download the new Season 3 of Someone You Know on all major podcast platforms. Rube, time for a points bet segment. I have the Patrick Mahomes passing yards over under. It's a high number, no surprise here, 295.5.
Wow. I mean, I just think they're going to throw it like 45, 50 times. So I'm going to take the over.
Now, is that a bad sign, do you think? Or is that just the way they're going to play this and the flow of this game?
I don't think it's necessarily a bad sign. I think I'm going in thinking this game is going to be played in the high 20s or 30s or low 30s. So how do the Chiefs get there? They're going to throw it a lot. So, yeah, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. You're not going to – it's not going to be like last week or the week before. This is a whole different sport that they play. So I'm going to take the over.
Yeah, he's going to get his. And I think there's still going to be those long drives. And if you stop them on one or two of them, you feel pretty good. It might have to be a shootout. It might just have to be that style of win. Against Cincinnati in the AFC Championship game, he threw for 326. The week before, just 195, but he was pretty efficient, 73%, 2 touchdowns. So, he's pretty good. He's a tough guy to stop. I don't think even stopping him is not the game here. It's slowing him down and trying to steal a possession from him here and there.
Yeah, and when you do give up a play, which is inevitable, forget about it. Go on to the next rep because it's over.
Yeah,
and it's going to happen.
That's a very good point. It is going to happen, and they have some veteran corners, and I think enough veterans on that defense to realize that you never get down because this is going to be a heavyweight bout.
And I think this group will do that.
Yeah. It's time to get your swagger back with PointsBet Sportsbook. PointsBet, your move. Rube, so we mentioned that today was the final availability over at the team hotel in Phoenix, right?
No, it's actually in Chandler, but it's on a Native American reservation, Gila. What is it? Gia Valley. So probably our date line should have been Gia Valley Reservation, Arizona, but it's the land is inside the borders of Chandler, not Tempe.
Well, we were writing Phoenix because that's just.
Oh, I was writing Tempe because
the address is Phoenix.
The ad on their website says Tempe, but it's actually in Chandler. So
the address that I plugged in is we don't know where we are.
Yeah, but that's you ever go up Route 1 in Mercer County and everything's Princeton this, Princeton that, but none of it's really in Princeton. Princeton doesn't even go out to Route 1.
I spent 3 days at this place. Didn't know where it was the whole time.
But anyway, somewhere in Arizona. I think we're good. It's not New Mexico. I think we're good
Not
on that.
Utah. Our last chance to talk to some of these players.
There's a transition for you. There's a segue.
You can take that if you want.
Yeah. Speaking of Utah, I'm not as good as him with the segues, but speaking of Utah, I did have a chat with Britton Covey just because by the end of today's availability, we didn't need any more interviews or quotes. We were just kind of hanging out with guys. I hung out with some of the coaches and just so last time we'll really have any significant time with them other than maybe locker clean out day. But Britton Covey had a really interesting observation. I thought, he said, right now we're physically we're all sore. It's been a long year. We're kind of beaten down by the season. But mentally, we're sharper than we've ever been. We're so on top of it mentally. And he said, when the season starts, it's the opposite. You're physically feel great. Your legs are fresh. You haven't hit much in training camp, but you're mentally, you're just learning everything and, seeing where you fit in and getting it all down. And he said, he says it's a complete opposite. And here we are. I like the way he's very analytical mind. And it was interesting to hear him say, and he said the Chiefs are the same way. He said they're, I'm not sure how he knows that, but he said they're, at this point of the year, you feel so locked in mentally after, training camp started late July. They've been grinding since July, and it's now February. That's a long time. Plus, you add OTAs in spring, and so mentally they're on top of it. They know everything. It's like when you go to that final exam, and you're so locked, like whatever they throw at you. And this is a hypothetical, because I was about
never
to say,
actually
felt that way
in
my life. But yeah, that's probably what it felt like when you were prepared for an exam.
Yeah, it was weird today because by the end of it, we're like, all right, I've talked to these guys for 22 weeks.
Yeah.
I have nothing left for, I was sitting there talking to Quez. Well, I walked over to talk to Quez, and he looked at me like, what do you want? I said, I'm just saying what's up.
Yeah. I walked over to Shane Steichen, and I said, I got nothing left to ask anybody.
Yeah.
And there was no one at his table who was like, just sit down and ask me questions. So we ended up talking about San Diego Airport.
I did get some. I did ask questions because I talked to Hassan Reddick, and it's not lost on him that he's in Arizona right now, playing for the Super Bowl. He said even like at the team facility, because that's where the Eagles have been practicing all week. Like he knows his way around, and it all came back to him really quick. He said they were like going in the hot tub, or the whirlpool. I guess it's a whirlpool, not a hot tub. But like he knew where the buttons were to turn on the jets and everything, and all of his teammates like, "Oh yeah, that's right. You spent quite a bit of time here." And he said everything is still the exact same. Nothing's changed.
It's kind of like our rent-a-car. Yeah. Look, he's kind of the star. Slay's a big name here, and obviously Fletcher, BG. They got some big names, Hargrave, but I feel like it's Reddick's kind of week as far as his defense goes.
Yeah, I agree with that. He's been their best player.
Yeah,
and he's been so much more than even I thought. And I thought he was going to be really good. I thought he would get double digits. I didn't know he would be as consistently good. Yeah. Because before in his career, like he would get sacks in bunches. He would get like it would come like in a few games. But to see him do this week in and week out this year, that's what really impressed me most about him.
Yeah, and I was talking to him back home. I think it might have been that Friday before we left, and he said, I just wish people were more patient. And he was just talking about himself, but just, we just had this conversation about how, like Jalen, people were impatient with him. And Jason Kelce didn't make a Pro Bowl till his fifth year.
Yeah.
Doc didn't make a Pro Bowl till his fourth year. So sometimes he said, look, it's really hard to learn how to play in the NFL. And some people pick it up the first year and they're great. Some people, it just takes a little longer, but just because you don't do it your first year doesn't mean you suck. It doesn't mean you're not going to be a good player. And he said, I just wish people were more patient, but that's the world we live in. And I understand that. You draft a guy in the first round. You want him to produce.
Yeah. I also heard some Jason Kelce today. He was asked about his experience this time versus last time at the Super Bowl. And he's like, there've been a few more people around me this time. He's like, I don't really know why. But it's not just, I think that would be the case even without his brother being on the other team.
Yeah.
And he brought up that point. He's like, I was a younger player in 2017. I wasn't what I am now. I wasn't the star of that team. He's a star of this team.
Yeah. Stalin said something to me yesterday I thought was really interesting. He said Kelce's technique has never been better than this year. Guys in his...
It has to be, because his body sometimes is like duct taped together.
12th year, and his technique is better. It just tells you, we know the Kelce of podcasts and interviews and mummers outfits. He's still, at this point in his career, such a student of the game.
Yeah, and he has to be. Like, that's what his whole career is built on, because he's fast. But when you're going against guys who are that much bigger, if your technique isn't on point, you're going to get splatted on the field. Splatted.
Okay. Splat.
Anything else?
No.
Let's wrap this up. If you enjoy the Eagle Eye podcast, please rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe there as well. That's it. We'll talk to you tomorrow. For Rube, I'm Dave. This has been Eagle Eye.